And now here we go. I'm going to stop right here and just say that any person, anybody, if anybody says the phrase gender ideology, I'm going to take off my glasses for this so you can see how serious I am. So unfortunately, we have to do some discourse because I got into a little bit of a heated debate recently. If you've been paying attention to the news, you might know that there is a certain growing animosity towards drag and drag queens and queer people in general, specifically gay men and trans women. Not to say that other people like lesbians or trans men or bi folks and non-binary folks aren't also getting it, but the focus does seem to be on gay men and trans women for the most part. It's not fair, it's not nice, I don't like it, but that's where we are. Recently, I saw this post on an Instagram account that I follow that I will not name. The person's name, the person who tweeted it is going to be there. She's like a famous musician, so it's like I feel no need to like necessarily protect her identity. So we've got this tweet here. They see drag shows as inherently sexual because they can't see women as anything other than sexual objects. And in the comments of this post, I disagreed. I lightly disagreed because I don't while this does seem to be some factor that you could argue, I feel like it's not the main thrust of the issue, right? They don't see drag shows as inherently sexual because they see women as sexual objects. They see them as sexual because they think gay men are groomers who dress up as women to confuse your children into being gay. Which I don't even know how to begin to unwrap that stupidity. And no shade to Laura Jane Grace. She's a really cool lady, great musician, really good lyricist, very smart, and I think that she has a point to make in this post, but I don't think if we're looking at the overall treatment that queer people have been getting, it's like a women's issue. Necessarily, specifically a women's issue. So I commented, I said, I don't know if I entirely agree with this one because while righties do see women as inherently sexual and therefore a lot of drag is sexual, the drag bans really have very little to do with women, yada yada yada. I said all of this already. Gay men have been called groomers and and for years and years by conservatives, and this crusade against drag is another extension of that. I didn't mention trans women because I didn't want to get into it. It just feel like this comment would be like another paragraph long, and I like to keep comments under posts succinct. And then a woman responded to me, and I have blocked her account. So this woman responded, "There is no reason whatsoever for drag to be performed for children. Those who keep advocating for normalizing it are not doing anything to combat that grossly homophobic misapprehension." Put a pin in it. Actually, put 2 pins in these first 2 sentences. "Perhaps people should start thinking about a healthy balance in society rather than proving a point by engaging in extreme behaviors. I've seen way too many examples of a drag queen story hour that includes scantily clad men dancing and twerking for kids. Put a pin in it. Sorry, no one is going to convince me that that's an art form, or that big fake breasts under shiny dresses and huge fake eyelashes on caked makeup don't affect little girls differently than it affects little boys." I don't even know how to put a pin in this last sentence because I don't know what she means, but anyway, we'll get to it. So this person had been commenting under this post with like other people, and as you can see, I did not engage her. I commented my opinion. She came onto my turf and decided to embarrass herself. So let's go through these points. Let's go through these like bullet by bullet. There is no reason whatsoever for drag to be performed for children. That is an incredibly stupid thought to have. I'm sorry. That's like the dumbest thought I've ever had, like, relayed to me. Because what you are saying is that this art form specifically is inherently not good for children, which I the amount of diversity in the drag world all over the world, you're saying that there's no drag in the entire world that should be performed for children. That makes no sense. And also, the idea of drag being a performance in and of itself is like weird because drag is more of a medium, it's more of a genre than an actual performance in and of itself, right? Like there are dancing queens, comedy, like stand up, lip syncers, live singers. What else? Like magic shows, cabaret. You know, there's so much in drag that isn't just drag. Like no one would say that their talent. I guess some people would say this, but like to say that my talent is drag is kind of weird to me because it feels more like a medium rather than a performance in and of itself. The other thing is that drag queens aren't like stupid. Like the idea that scantily clad men are dancing and twerking for kids at a public library. I don't know what kinky libraries this woman is going to, but like no public library would be okay with that, and gay men specifically are not so stupid as to go to a public library and twerk for children while reading The Hungry Caterpillar or whatever. And the other part of this, scantily clad, if you look at drag queen story hours, these queens are wearing more layers than I'm wearing right now, and I'm wearing a shirt and a blazer and sunglasses. Like, these queens are wearing more layers than I am, and they're usually dressed in really ugly, garish colors that, like, appeal to children on, like, a Disney princess brain level. Like, they're not trying to turn kids on. What does that even mean? Like, kids are attracted to these drag queens in the way that they're attracted to Cinderella at Disney World, who's wearing full coverage. Most queens and or gays seem to dislike children. Drag queens don't even like kids. Why they don't want kids around them. Queens who are not kid friendly are not doing drag time story hour. Trixie Mattel is not doing drag queen story hour. Katya is not doing drag queen story hour. You know who is doing drag queen story hour? Mrs. Kasha Davis, because she's nice and has a motherly energy and just wants kids to be literate. And her performances, she's a comedy queen and she has this like very like dad joke-esque energy to her, which again makes her very appealing to kids whose sense of comedy is not like Frasier level or like, I don't know, Drag Race even. Next point, and this is a big one for me. This one got me real mad and is the reason I even replied to this person at all. Those who keep advocating for normalizing drag being performed for children are not doing anything to combat that grossly homophobic misapprehension. So what she's referring to here is when I said gay men have been called groomers, and for years and years by conservatives. So what she's saying is that drag queens doing drag queen story hour for children are not doing anything to combat the idea that gay men are groomers and child rape. Can you see how like deeply disgusting that sentiment is? That is absolutely rotted, in my opinion, to say that. That is like saying, well, if black people didn't want to be killed by police, they should just stop doing crime. Like, it's the exact same argument. It's disgusting. And it's putting the blame, it's putting the onus of homophobia on people engaging in an art form that has been in the queer community since there was even a community to speak of and before. Sorry, nobody's going to convince me that that's an art form. So, what does this even mean? I've seen way too many examples of drag queen story. By the way, this bitch has never been to a drag queen story hour. She has never been to a. I doubt she's even seen a photo of a drag queen story hour. I doubt she's even been inside of a library at this point. But the idea that because some drag queens have a not safe for kid show or persona, that being a reason to not call it an art form doesn't make any sense to me. There is plenty of art that is sexual, sensual, scantily clad, risque, rude, as the British say. This is like saying there is no reason whatsoever for films to be performed for children because some movies are porn. It's the same kind of stupid argument where it's like, yeah, okay, not every facet of every art form needs to be kid friendly. Why should it be? I remember some video clip of him responding to some deadly homophobia and transphobia with, then why do you keep doing it? Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. It's the same argument of, well, if you didn't want us to be homophobic, just stop being gay. Why are you gay? Can't you see that I'm homophobic? Why would you even want to keep being gay when I'm so homophobic? The existence of risque art does not make that entire medium not art. Some movies are porn. Some porn films are like 3 hours long. That doesn't mean that all 3-hour movies are not art. And I know some people in chat are going to disagree with that. But you know what? Here we are. Some of my favorite movies are 3 hours long, and some of them aren't even porn. So she responded, you might like that to be the case, me saying that drag is not always sexual and that no queen going to a drag queen story hour is going to be twerking for 5-year-olds. You might like that to be the case, but unfortunately reality includes not just harmless, fully dressed people reading stories to kids, but also plenty of excessive exposure to parts of drag and gender ideology. And now here we go. I'm going to stop right here and just say that any person, anybody, if anybody says the phrase gender ideology, I'm going to take off my glasses for this so you can see how serious I am. If somebody ever mentions the phrase gender ideology to you when making an argument for why transphobia is fine, anytime anybody says gender ideology, you can just write them off entirely. Just tell them they're an idiot and move on. Don't be like me. Don't keep responding. They're too down the rabbit hole if they think that the phrase gender ideology is anything. Gender ideology have no place in libraries. I'm not going to engage further with people who simply refuse to accept that there are legitimately ways that this goes too far. I have nothing against drag for what it is. It is not for children, and we can leave it at that. So that's a lie. She was going to further engage with me, but we'll get there. So the reality... Oh, sorry, let's read the rest. Drag is not just dress up, or you people wouldn't be such insane crusaders for it. If you want to skew my words and die on this hill, then be my guest. Can't help but laugh at how males feel so entitled to defend female impersonation. So there's a lot to unpack here. You might like that to be the case, but unfortunately reality includes not just harmless, fully dressed people reading stories to kids, but also plenty of excessive exposure to parts of drag and gender ideology that have no place in libraries. Gender ideology, anybody who says that to you, write them off. They're a TERF. I mean, if TERFs existed. They're like TERs. You can't be a TERF and a feminist. Do you know what I mean? There's no way to be trans exclusionary and be a feminist. TERFs don't exist. They're just conservatives. Let me zoom in for you. There are legitimately ways that this goes too far. Again, any art film, any medium art form can go too far. I don't say that no movies are art because 120 Days of Sodom exists. This is ridiculous. It's like saying kids shouldn't be listening to the Doodle Bops because Cupcake has a song about deep throating. It makes no sense. And the other thing too is that kids, unfortunately, for better or worse, have access to the internet. They're probably gonna find the dark stuff, and that's not on drag queen's fault. That's not an artist's fault. That's not on any artist's fault. If a kid accidentally Googles Sallow and ends up watching 120 Days of Sodom, that is not on the director and writer on that of that film. You know what I mean? We can put trigger warnings, we could put content warnings, we could warn people about what they're about to watch, but no, we shouldn't not make art because some of it's going to be excessive or transgressive or sexual. It's stupid. So she says drag is not just dress up, because in my previous comment I said drag at the end of the day is dress up, which kids do anyway in their own play and which is a mainstay in children's programming. Look at Bugs Bunny or pantomimes in Britain, which is just true. Drag has been a part of children's comedies and like children's shows and programming since we've had it. This isn't new. Kids are not getting confused when they see the cartoon Bugs Bunny dress up as a sexy lady with big fat tits, okay? Drag is not just dress up, or you people wouldn't be such insane crusaders for it. That's an interesting term, isn't it? You people. And I assume that she knows I'm gay at this point while we're commenting, so I asked her, who is the you people that you're mentioning? Do you mean liberals? In other comments, she described herself as not conservative, which I think is obviously a lie, even with these couple comments that she's posted. She's described herself as a feminist. So it's like, what is it? If you're not a conservative, then you couldn't mean liberals as you people, could you? No, because you identify as liberal. You can't mean feminists because you describe yourself as a feminist. So who are the you people? And I don't even know that I have to say it out loud for you to understand what I'm saying here, right? She means queer people. She means gay men. She means trans is she just means queer people. She just means queer people. That's all she means. And then this next line kind of connects to the gender ideology phrase. Can't help but laugh at how males feel so entitled to defend female impersonation, laughing emoji. Now I will say, as a male, I do feel incredibly entitled to defend female impersonation, because you know who impersonates women? Men. Men doing drag are impersonating women. Of course I feel entitled to defend it. I also feel entitled to defend male impersonation from women. She feels that drag queens threaten her womanhood. Oh, 100%. The fact that she's like pulling out this whole like gender essentialist, look at how males feel so entitled to defend drag queens sullying the sanctity of femininity is like, that paired with gender ideology, it's like, girl, you are telling on yourself in so many ways. It's like, I bet she just has a printout of J.K. Rowling's essay just taped over her walls so she can wake up and read it every morning. But the other thing about this too is that female impersonation is not just being defended by men, it's also being defended by women. There are plenty of women who do female impersonation. Do you think Dolly Parton looks like that? Dolly Parton is a female impersonator. She's a woman who's a female impersonator. There's no getting around that. Lady Gaga is a woman who is a female impersonator. There are tons. Victoria Scone is a woman who's a female impersonator. This isn't just like a men versus women thing, as much as Terfs would like you to believe. I was extremely good faith in my previous replies to you, but you clearly don't have the spine to return that courtesy, and I don't think you're educated enough on drag or art to even be having this conversation. And I believe that. I don't think anybody making the arguments that she's made so far is educated or intelligent enough to even engage with the subject matter, and probably should sit this one out and let the grown-ups talk. Somebody else said that she was on the side of, because the thing about these drag queen story hours is that in some instances neo-Nazis have been showing up to protest drag performances and even drag queen story hours. You know, neo-Nazis, the kind of people you would prefer to have around your kids rather than drag queens. And she said that they were being hyperbolic, and I said, oh, she wants to call people out for being hyperbolic, after calling me an insane crusader for drag. So she said the hyperbole comment was to the other poster who called me a Nazi, which is far from good faith. Didn't call her a Nazi, by the way. I don't have the proof for this. You're just going to have to take my word. Did not call her a Nazi. Said that she was on the same side as the Nazis, which I think is fair. I have been to quite a few drag shows, brunches, bingos, etc. She's never been to a single one. And watched plenty of drag and ballroom. No, she hasn't. I'm sorry that you think the fact that I don't have the same opinion as you makes me inherently uneducated or bigoted, but you're wrong. You people, meaning people who get up in arms defending drag specifically as a form of expression appropriate for kids. I'm not making some kind of veiled reference to LGBT people as a whole. I'm bi. I'm bi. I love that for her. She has never been to a drag show. Maybe she has. I feel like she's the kind of person who was at a drag show because she was part of somebody's bachelorette party and was super pissed to be there the whole time. I'm sorry that you think the fact that I don't have the same opinion as you makes me inherently uneducated or bigoted, but you're wrong. And it's not that you have a different opinion than me, it's that you have a wrong opinion and you're uneducated. Having different opinions, sure, it doesn't mean you're less educated, but like that's if we're talking about like infrastructure, and sometimes even that's not right. If both of us know how to build a railway and both of our ideas are equally valid, and we both want to build a railway and a different idea, and we get in a tiff about it, then yes, you're right. It doesn't make either of us less educated. It just means that one of us maybe has a better idea. But the idea that this is an opinion that she has that's just different than mine and that's where we have to leave it, it's like, no, you're incorrect. You're making stupid arguments. You are proving how uneducated you are about drag, about queer culture, about art, about libraries, and about children, and frankly about gay men and trans people, of course, because she 100% hates trans people. Bada bing, bada boom. And I kind of want to talk about this. I'm not making some kind of veiled reference to LGBT people as a whole. I'm bi. There are plenty of conservative and turfy LGBT people. Lesbians make up a lot of turfs. Like, a lot of them. And it's not the non-gender, it's like the gender divergent, right? Or like gender non-conforming, that's the one. Gender non-conforming lesbians, some of them are turfs because they see trans women and drag queens by extension as like stealing valor. Do you know what I mean? Stealing valor from cis women. That butch lesbian turf, she's mad because she's had to fight her whole life to accept herself as a woman in a world that doesn't accept her because she's butch. And so she turns around, sees drag queens and trans people wearing nails and eyeshadow, maybe a heel or two if they're not like already 6 feet tall. and she gets mad and wants to commit a genocide. It's whatever. It's the butch to genocide pipeline. And the idea that being queer exempts you from bigotry is a really dangerous one that we really need to like address in the LGBT community. Dave Rubin is gay. Caitlyn Jenner is trans. They are both awful, awful people and awful grifters. And they are both deeply anti-LGBT. They are both deeply anti-queer. Like, there is no reason for me to respect their opinion any more than a straight transphobe or a straight homophobe, which Dave Rubin and Caitlyn Jenner are both homophobic transphobes, of course. Like, obviously she meant queer people, obviously she meant gay men, obviously she meant trans women, because in the previous tweet she says, can't help but laugh at how males feel so entitled to like, she meant men. She meant gay men. Because she's complaining about how gay men who do drag are perpetuating homophobic stereotypes. She's complaining about males defending female impersonation. I know who you meant, you goddamn idiot. That was a rhetorical question to try and get you to say what you meant. But no, she just leans back on people who defend drag are people who defend drag. Like, okay. So here's the thing. You keep saying drag is inappropriate for kids and that drag has no place around children under any circumstances. Is Dolly Parton inappropriate for kids? And the reason I bring up Dolly Parton is very specific, and I'll get to it in a second. Dolly Parton is a female impersonator. She wears wigs, fake tits, lipstick, fake eyelashes, nails, makeup, and dresses. Surely you wouldn't be so silly as to say that she shouldn't perform for children, right? So the reason I was making this argument is that, for one, Dolly Parton is a female impersonator. I think she said as much. She said if I were born a man, I would be a drag queen. Because, like, her hair is not platinum blonde. It has not been the same color for the last 50 goddamn years or however long she's been performing. She wears all of this stuff. She has fake tits. I don't know what Dolly Parton looks like in the real world, and it's because she performs in drag. And the second reason I brought Dolly Parton up specifically is because she performs for children. She has children's albums out. She does book readings for children. She likes kids and she performs for them and she reads to them and all that other stupid garbage that I never want to do with my life. She isn't always tits out. That's my point. Dolly Parton has two wolves inside of her, and one of them is a busty blonde bombshell, and one of them is a children's entertainer who wears long, bright green dresses that don't appeal to an adult's color palette. Some of her work, some of her performances are not suitable for kids, but a lot of it is. And it's the same thing with drag queens. There is no difference here. The only difference is that one of them is a cis woman and one of them is a cis man or a trans man or a trans women. Trans women do drag, which I'm sure is very confusing to the conservative mind. Trans men do drag. Have you never seen Gottmik? Gottmik is a trans man who does female impersonation. Their brain, this woman's brain, would absolutely explode in her head if she ever even learned what Gottmik is. Who Gottmik is, sorry. So I just wanted to talk about this because I feel like this whole like crusade against drag, and yes, I'm gonna call it a crusade because I'm not looking to murder anybody. I'm not looking for anybody to die or lose their livelihood. And the thing is, people like Dolly Parton, people like Trixie Mattel, they're gonna be fine. I mean, they're not gonna be fine. Like, Trixie Mattel's probably gonna take a hit. But the thing is, as scared as Trixie or Dolly Parton are, they are rich and white. They're fine. The real victims of this drag uproar, this hysteria around drag are going to be for trans black people and like non-white people. It's really concerning. I don't know. And it always starts with this like appeal to think of the children. They don't want to, children don't deserve to be exposed to this degeneracy. There's no reason whatsoever for drag to be for. This is how it starts. This isn't the end game, right? Like, this is still very early stages. Or not even early stages. This is like mid stages. And I think the idea of queer genocide is not as far off in the United States as people like to think it is. I think some people think this drag, anti-trans, anti-drag discourse is the beginning stages, but there are already laws being passed. There are already things happening. I don't know. As much fun as we can have discussing drag and looking at drag and watching and, you know, supporting queens, and we should do all of those things, it is important to push back against like this. Not because I think I'm going to change this psycho's mind, but because maybe somebody in the comments who agrees with her, and again, let's be reminded, she came to me, she approached me, but the minute she had to comment this, it's like, well, I can't let this go unaddressed. That would be kind of irresponsible in my opinion, because I don't think it's the time to turn the other cheek when people like her are actively trying to support a queer genocide, basically. Trying to change a transphobe or, you know, a queerphobe in general's mind, like a dyed-in-the-wool queerphobe, it's not really worth it. But if you're in a comment section or some sort of public forum, it's like, it's not really the time to, like I said, turn the other cheek on this kind of shit. If there are people in your life who are making like transphobic jokes, or maybe who are not taking the anti-drag stuff seriously, then I think that's, if you feel safe enough to do so, if you feel safe, comfortable, knowledgeable enough to do so, definitely do it. Like, I don't think that I'm a great speaker. I'm not a great debater. I would never like sit down and try and debate somebody because I don't have the head for it. At least in person, like speaking out loud, I tend to get a little bit overwhelmed trying to keep track of everything. But when somebody writes out, what I can do is respond when somebody writes out all of their points, and I can respond to each one. And I mean, if you'll notice, she doesn't respond to a single one of my points. She does not say anything. She just keeps saying, drag isn't for kids, drag isn't for kids, drag isn't for kids, drag. Do you know that drag isn't for kids? Drag isn't dress up, it's not for kids. Drag isn't for kids, you guys. I'm not wrong, we just have different opinions, and my opinion is that drag isn't for kids. She didn't bring up anything. And the thing is, she can't, right? She's stupid and she doesn't have any points. It's the thing to remember about like queerphobia in general is that it's entirely vibes based. All of the think about the children is garbage. It's bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. You just have to remember that the root of transphobia, of homophobia, of anti-drag queen sentiment is not protecting children, it's disgust. That's the root. It's the same disgust response that you have when you see human feces on public transit. You know what I mean? It's the same disgust response. It's no different. Because the thing is, if you wouldn't be opposed to Dolly Parton reading for kids, which I'm guessing this woman wouldn't be, but you are against Mrs. Kasha Davis reading for kids, there is only one difference, and the difference is you find it gross for a man to wear nail polish and a wig in a way that you don't find it gross for women to do so. That's it. I like this format though. If everybody could just like email me or post comments for me that just detail all of their points, I'll get back to you in like maybe 10 minutes, but you know, I'll win.